Okay, so my name's Greta. I'm the candidate for the Greens for the Bayside Council election, and I'm here with Jody, and we are talking about housing, housing affordability, and really the importance of this issue for local residents. So yeah, Jody, uh,
Hi.
thank you so much for talking with us today. It's such an important issue. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience of housing?
Yeah, sure. So thank you for making this platform as well. I know you have a lot of experience with housing and social housing, so I'm really excited to explore that with you. My personal circumstance is that I'm 46. I'm a single mum. I've been a single mum for 8 years now. So since my youngest was just 3, which, you're into your daycare stuff there and how affordable is daycare. I've worked the whole time, so I was self-employed for a lot of years, working weekends, which made me able to be present for the children during the weekdays, which is it's parenting indispensable if someone needs to be there. And of course, we as mums, generally we as mums, we try to, mould ourselves to be there as much for the kids as we can. So I was self-employed for a good 10 years. As soon as my son started kindergarten and my daughter was in year 3 by then, I was studying the whole time. So I was doing counselling, studying and community services and therapy, psychotherapy studies, and I've been doing that consistently. So I've now got a 12 and a 10-year-old, one in high school and one in year 4, and I'm nearly there with my studies to get to a point that I can start to use them. That's my personal framework. Yeah. If I look at my housing, then, I will say honestly that housing has probably been the underlying stressor for the whole 8 years, is how do I keep us housed and safe in a house in Sydney? I can't go anywhere else. We're under family law. You can't leave. You're here. I'm stuck in Sydney. This is where I am. My job is as a mum to keep my children safe, to keep them in a home, and to keep us moving forward.
Exactly, because that's the thing, is because if you want or you need to stay where the other parent lives, then you pretty much need to stay in, close to them. So that limits people from, moving to a more sort of affordable place.
My family personally is in Newcastle. So did I think of moving to Newcastle at one point? Yeah, but you're out of the 2-hour or whatever the radius is, you're out of that kilometre restriction. So it just wasn't appropriate. And their dad is active in their lives. Their dad took them while I was working every weekend. So that was really fantastic. But it means that I'm in Sydney. So my job right now, and I remember when their dad left, I think I had 2 weeks to find a way to pay the rent. And that was a very, very quick scramble. And I feel like that's been my Sydney story, is doing these really quick scrambles to try to find a way to stay housed in Sydney. And it is just a game of how do I make this work? How do I make this work, and how do I keep making sure that I'm the best tenant possible and that I can keep paying the rent so that I'm a desirable tenant? And I do work. I'm permanent casual, 24 hours a week in community services. I feel very proud of myself. I've managed to stay in the same area, in the same walking distance of the same school for 8 years for my kids, which I feel really, really proud of. Yeah, I feel really proud of that, actually. And I don't really know how. I can't actually give a logical explanation, except that somehow I've managed to make it work. And we've had three different houses on this hill. The last 2 have been knocked down and turned into something else. Yeah, I'm hoping this one doesn't. And it's all been reliant on flatmates, etc. And when you talk to people as well, and you realise that their mortgage is way less than the rent you're paying. And that's, I guess, where it feels really unfair. That's where I just go far out, please let me pay a mortgage. I can absolutely honour a mortgage much easier than I can keep chasing this rent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There are things that local government can do, councils can think about as having council-owned housing, but the equity is shared with people who have a moderate amount of savings. And then when people invest their own savings, that gives people housing security. And then if, there can be models where people can, if they want to move out, they can then, the council would pay back that equity. But in the end, council actually owns that. So there are things we can do, and there are things, and we need to do this because we know that it's just so difficult, as you said, unsustainable for people to be living in these conditions. And that's, why so many people are moving out of Sydney.
And we're already aware that the 60-year-old women are the growing age of homelessness, and I feel like I've been sitting with a very big awareness that, right, okay, so I'm the next 60-year-old homeless woman. Didn't imagine that for myself. I imagined myself much more sustainable. But even if I grow my career, and even if I keep earning, and even if I keep working until I'm 70,
it's still not enough. It's still not enough.
How do rent grow in my income span? Like, how does this actually work out? And I'm not sure it ever works out in my favour. I mean, and if you look at Housing New South Wales, where their percentages are, I believe, is it 30 or 35% of your income is what's deemed to be a healthy amount of rent?
So people are considered to be in housing stress if you're paying more than 30% of your income in housing.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, really,
yeah.
So many people pay much more than 30% of their income in housing. And really, it's just the amount of stress and worry that is causing is just phenomenal.
Hey, thank you. Exactly that. And I feel like I can, I feel like a very strong, able person. I can take it. Let me do it. I can give you 50, 60% of my income. But once you're up to 70% of my income, I'm starting to drown. There's nothing else I can do. And I'm already at maximum capacity. I'm already doing all of this, and I'm giving all of my attention, and I'm working this hard, and I'm making sure my children are up on everything that they're meant to be up on. I'm trying to give them the opportunities, but I'm now drowning. I now can't sustain. And that's where it becomes really, really scary. And I don't see a change to that. I don't see a change to that moving forward. I don't see where this is going to end.
Absolutely. And we've seen, even just in the last half a year, how house prices just keep going up.
Yep.
It's just, and you just keep thinking, well, how far can this go? And then, the next month, house prices have gone even further.
Yeah.
And
who is this benefiting? It's this unknown capitalistic realm that it's like, well, who is this even benefiting? Where is this even? What are we meant to do with this?
Well, it's actually benefiting people who already own homes. That's the thing, and a lot of people, the sort of increased capital gains from their homes are more than what they're earning in their wages and income. So this is the terrible equation that is going on, is that the majority who own their home are benefiting from increased prices, but it's putting an inordinate amount of pressure, a huge amount of pressure on the people who are paying rent. And even, in a local government area like Bayside, where I think roughly 36% of people are renting, which is higher than the Australian average. But this is the thing, is that renters are sort of being squeezed more and more and more as the people who own homes are sort of, reaping the benefits. And this is something that really, it just needs to stop.
And we're in early September 2021. Lockdown's been going on for a while, but it's not COVID that keeps me awake at night. It's the fear that my landlord might decide to sell. And then what are my options?
Exactly.
What are my options with increasing rent? Doing this, and I really feel like I work hard. I feel like there's very little breaks in my life. I feel like there's very little respite. There's very little gaps. I do feel like I drive at maximum capacity to just maintain basic sustainability. I don't think I could be deemed lazy by any standards, but nothing scares me more then should my landlord decide to sell, all the rent goes up. That's what wakes me up at night, not COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awful.
Mm.
Well, this is my pledge to you, Jodie, that if I get on council, I will definitely, one of the first things I do will be get council to do a survey of council-owned land.
Yep.
Then once we know what we have, we will then partner with a community housing provider or go to loan as council. We will work with council to come up with some kind of model, whether it's shared equity, whether it's includes some social housing or something like that, and then actually provide housing that's affordable for people on medium and lower incomes. I think that's a really, really important thing.
I love that, and I'm really interested in your shared equity.
Those people who have, as you have, saved up over decades a modest amount of money that you have, that you can contribute to something like this, and that can then give you the stability and the housing security that you won't be moved on because you actually part own that place. So
I really like that. Housing is a really great option for people who've got nothing, and working in community services, thank goodness, the housing model. So people who've really got nothing are eligible for housing. People who've left domestic violence relationships are eligible for products that help get them and their children to safety. And I think that's such a fantastic thing. But if you've got over, you don't have to have much to be outruled from any housing services. So if you've actually been working and plodding along and trying to stash bits to potentially one day buy a house, it's just such a massive gap between what you're eligible for with housing, massive, huge, and then what will actually help you buy a house in Sydney. They are planets apart. So it feels like you've got to have absolutely nothing or really come from a wealthy counterpart to be able to create just the basics of housing stability. And when I talk about housing stability, I'm not just talking about the surety of having a house for a year, because we know that a tenancy agreement will give you that. It's actually that feeling, the fear, this uncertainty that, oh shit, I've got to, I'm now past a year. I've got to be waiting for that message that tells me I need to uproot. And when you've got kids, moving house is at least a 2-month experience. It's 2 months out of work. It's 2 months out of study. It's 2 months of doing double time to relocate, to pack, to plan, it's massive. It's not to be laughed at.
It's extremely stressful. Moving house.
Yeah. And
it is. To expect parents to do that every year is just phenomenal.
It is massive. It's huge. And it is, like I say, it is the biggest fear. It is much more of a fear than so many of the things that are going on right now. It's like, what happens if I need to do this? What happens if I get that magic message that tells me my next 2 to 3 months are about to be uprooted? So why is it that there is just such a huge gap between those who've got nothing and those who've got enough? It's planets apart, and I cannot imagine that in the next 20 years of working, 30 years, that I can leap this gap.
That brings us to the end of this interview. Thank you so much, Jodie, for reaching out and for sharing your experience with us. The Greens are developing a plan for social, affordable and shared equity housing in Bayside. At the next council election, vote Green so we can work with council to turn this plan into reality, starting with a survey of council-owned land and then developing a targeted approach that's appropriate for each site. Thank you for watching. I'd love your support, and let's get behind our Greens candidates.
Authorised by Sylvia Hale for the Greens New South Wales.